Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and a neuropsychologist, and I'm also um, the parent or the father, obviously, of a couple of ADHD kids. And I'm married into a whole passel of people who are ADHD. So it's sort of like I have been, yes, and I just got the word from my sound engineer that I'm making noise. Anyway, so when I look back over my life, it seems like I must have always been destined to work with ADHD. They always seem to be around me, and a lot of them were relatives. Okay, so I'm a little bit late this year. Um, that happens sometimes. But right now, the big deal, and for most people who have ADHD children, is that school has started. Pretty much all over the country, school has started. Maybe all over the world. I don't know for sure. But it is one of those times, the first couple of weeks, where we're having to sort of get the rust off of some old patterns and some old habits that we had established before. Hopefully, by now you have already met all the teachers. If you are younger elementary, or it's probably just one, but sometimes it's two or three. Anyway, you need to have met with those ahead of time, establish a good working relationship. They're not the enemy. And you ideally have had some input into who your child gets scheduled with. Okay, it's not one of those things that people emphasize very much, but you have the right to request a specific teacher for your child. And I guarantee you, every teacher who's good with ADHD children knows all the other teachers that are good with ADHD children. And there are some that just aren't really cut out to be working with ADHD kids. Over the course of my career as a clinical psychologist, I've had the opportunity to look at, a whole bunch of report cards for year after year for a lot of children. And one of the things I noticed, it was like very striking. Some years they were great. They had a wonderful time and, got good grades and good reports and all that stuff. And sometime it was like, it must have been a war zone in the classroom. They were getting bad grades and getting bad comments on their behavior and da 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 da. And really, the big difference was just the teacher. It's like, and I've had teachers as patients as well, and they say, oh, yeah, she hates ADHD kids. She just does, or he does. But there are some that, have more trouble dealing with an ADHD child than others. And on the other hand, there are a lot of teachers that do really well with ADHD children. Usually the ones that don't do well are the ones that are into the force, fear, and punishment kind of thing. They think they were anointed as drill sergeants or something. And the ones who do well typically have a lighter touch. It's just not beat that to death, but it is important to know. And it's important to know that you have the right to have some input into it. I mean, they're not going to rebuild the classroom for you, but you have a right to say, she's supposed to be really good with ADHD kids. I'd like it if my child could work with them. Anyway, and then of course the other thing is, and you're behind the power curve if you hadn't done it by now, but sometimes it works out that way. Accommodations. As an ADHD child, your son or daughter has the right to some accommodations. School systems typically like accommodations, mostly because they don't have to spend any money on accommodations. There are things like, oh, preferential seating, being able to record classes, and other things. As long as it doesn't cost the school system any money, they're usually pretty willing to do it. With the younger kids, a lot of times it's making sure the teacher reviews their book bag or whatever and make sure they've got the stuff they need to do homework. Uh, that kind of thing can be an accommodation. Anyway, there's and those aren't as big as uh, a plan for learning disabilities, and so the schools are, like I said, a little more willing to go along with those things. But those things need to be updated. You can't just say, "Oh, I got one." We did one when he was in first grade, and he's in the in high school now, and he's still using the same plan. You probably need to update it. Okay, I mean, a lot of things change it. Use medication use changes it. Uh, Maturity changes it. Sometimes it makes it worse, but sometimes it maturity makes it better. You just have to keep adapting and adjusting. And as you get more comfortable with all this and uh, a little more knowledgeable, I mean, some of you are out there, you're ahead of the game. You've known this stuff your whole life, and so it's not a big issue for you. But for some of you, it's a new thing. Okay, so the other thing is, especially for the younger kids, it's usually a good idea to have visited the school a few times before they have to get on the bus and go there by themselves. Just so most schools have before the school sessions formally start, they usually have a meeting where the whole family goes and looks at the classroom and meets the teacher and all that stuff. So make sure you've done that, because that's especially younger kids. Sometimes it's really scary, or if they're going to a new school, different from the one they were in the year before, that sometimes is a big deal. And then there's home. Okay, hopefully you have not just gone. I started to use some military language there, but so hopefully you've not gone crazy over the summer and just let them do whatever they want. Stay up all night playing video games and sleep until noon, and da da da. It's very important with an ADHD kid, especially, that you keep them on a regular schedule. Bedtime is roughly the same as it was during the school year. Wake up times are roughly the same as they were during the school year. That is all important, and hopefully the family gatherings, the meals, and that sort of thing are pretty much the same as they were during the school year. The more you get off from that, the more you deviate from the regular schedule, the harder it is to get back on, one thing. And another thing that we don't talk a lot about, but when you keep doing the same behavior at the same time every day, you develop a habit. Now, habits are better than regular patterns of behavior because you don't have to think about them. Most of us brush our teeth a couple of times a day, don't even think about whether we should or should not, or whether, we just do it. It's, 11 o'clock, I'm always brushing my teeth at that hour. And the good thing about habits is that they don't require much brain energy. They're just something you do because you've always done it. I never think, or rarely think, about brushing my teeth. That's just something I do. The advantage of that is that it isn't taking a lot of energy from working memory, which is, your brain's etch a sketch, as I call it, that you just kind of keep habits that are, where you're not going to think about it once you get it done. And that's, brushing your teeth and is one of those that you ideally are going to keep like that. Excuse me. And so the more consistent you are with that, the more they will, um, it'll become a habit and it'll become something that they do routinely. While they're developing that habit, I always recommend there's uh, outfit, a Canadian company, Easy something or other. Uh, anyway, and they uh, have these things that you can like put in the bathroom, so your kid can. You usually, I think it's a little magnet that you put on when you have brushed your teeth, when you've washed your face, when you've put on your pajamas. All the routine kind of things, because one of the things with ADHDers is you have to, what I call, externalize the executive functions. The executive functions are the planning and organization functions. So we know that kiddos with ADHD have a little more trouble with those things. So you give them an external thing, a thing on the wall that they can see. Oh yeah, I brushed my teeth, I put on my jammies, I washed my face, I've, whatever else the routine is. Uh, so I'm good to go to bed, and those are helpful things. You can buy a thing that lets you do that, or you can make your own. It's not rocket science by a long shot. You just have to have something that is external that they can see. Even if they're not really looking for it, they can see it, and it shows up. Bright colors and amusing pictures and all that sort of thing is one of the things you really need to do and use if you're going to build your own. If you buy them, they typically are designed by people who know something about kids. Okay, so you want your bedtimes to be consistent, and you want them to be consistent all week long. You don't want the weekends to be, we'll just go crazy. No, you want the regular routine. Otherwise, you're going to have a monumental job Monday morning, or getting them up and all that. You want, in addition, you need someplace, a routine. Everybody knows about the routines for going to bed, getting up in the morning, having meals on time. But another thing you need to figure out is homework. As far as I'm concerned, American kids get tons more homework than is necessary. Matter of fact, the research on how, if homework is actually essential to learning, suggests that it's not. But you got to do what the teacher wants you to do, or you're going to be fighting a war. So you have to figure out a way to do homework, a place to do homework in your house, someplace that you're always striking a balance between distraction-free environments and being able to monitor what they're doing. There's no way an outsider can tell you use this room, but you've got to look at your home environment and figure it out. Some people have gigantic kitchens, so they can have the kids work at the kitchen table. Most of us, it probably wasn't that big, and it probably would have been a real bad situation to have them doing all their homework in the kitchen. But it just depends on households. You just want someplace where they can concentrate, but not so much that it's going to disrupt everything else going on in the house. And you have to get that established pretty early. And you need to know, One of the things ADHD kids have a problem with is, you give them homework and they see it as, oh my God, there's this huge thing, and and they have to you train them in the most popular thing right now is probably the Pomodoro of uh, the approach. And Pomodoro, I mean, all that is a fancy way of saying you break it down into little pieces. Um, I've seen, recommendations for as short as 10 minutes. I think that's a little too short, but 25, 30 minutes, set a timer. You do your homework for 25 or 30 minutes, and then the alarm goes off and you stand up, jump around a little bit, maybe get a drink of water, whatever, and then sit back down and set the timer again. ADHD kids tend to like timers, and it's a good distraction. It keeps it from, oh my God, I got to do all this. I got to work, and all that kind of stuff where they start feeling overwhelmed and that sort of thing. But use the timer, use it consistently, and this will, well, it'll make your life a lot easier, and it'll make their life a lot easier because they have to learn that you can't get everything done in 10 minutes. And one of the ways to do that is to, um, break it down into small units that are tolerable. I don't know, 25, 30 minutes. That's pretty good for most kids. I mean, probably adults need 45 minutes and then take a break, but or they can do that much anyway. The other things we need to watch out for. I mean, the big thing for this generation of kids is video games, and you've got to watch that. I mean, you can't let that get out of control. It's one of those things that really grabs ADHDers. It's got lots of things going on and lots of colors and noises and beeps and buzzers and all kinds of stuff. And it's designed to grab your attention. It's designed to grab all of our attentions. The problem is that it's not really productive. Um, but it's not really totally unproductive. I mean, maybe they can fly drones for the Air Force or something. But what you want is that um, they're able to keep control of it so that it doesn't totally disrupt their lives. I mean, I remember I had one particular patient I always think of when I'm talking about this stuff. His dad was a doctor, and he was in high school, bright kid, but he got hooked on video games, and he lost a whole year of school because he was playing video games all the time, daytime, nighttime, whatever. And he was sharp enough, to tell his parents that he had mysterious abdominal problems. So his dad was a doctor. His dad ordered the $1 million workup. I mean, this kid had every medical test you can order, and they never found anything. Okay, but yeah, I tell him, I got, he was playing them and doing quite well at it. But so instead of going to school, he's home being sick for a whole school year. And oh, by the way, while he was being sick, he was playing the heck out of some video game. I forgot which one, but anyway, it's that's the kind of thing you don't want to lose control of, and you don't want your child to lose control of it either. And that's what we're there for. We set the limits, we train the limits, we train responsibility, we train them in how to accept defeat graciously, and how to break things down, bring complicated tasks down into smaller units so they can control and get things done and feel some sense of accomplishment. Okay, so this is a starting school again can be traumatic for everybody, but you want to you want to have your routines down pat and reinforce them constantly. That don't let them fall apart. Don't let the summer be a total video game Kool-Aid. Does anybody drink Kool-Aid anymore? Anyway, one of those deals where excuse me, those hand gestures will get you. But anyway, you don't want to have it be a time when you're all the habits, all the routines you've worked so hard to establish during the school year just go away. And if you don't reinforce them all the time, it's hard to get them started again. It's a lot more work, and you get more resistance every time you have to do it over again. So keep up the good work. Keep routines going. Establish them, monitor them, improve them continuously. And oh, by the way, you're try to get your kiddos to, when they're not in school, try to have them do something, learn something, take a course, do something that is just for them, and that they enjoy doing. Maybe it's art, maybe it's a sport, maybe it's some other specialty that they learn about, some special branch of knowledge. Because with an ADHD child, they're outside the box thinkers. They're not exactly the model that most of the school programs are designed for. Let's just put it that way. They're going to do something a little different, and they can be incredibly successful, but you need to encourage what their natural talents and abilities are. Or let me say that, rephrase that a little bit, that they will have interests, and that those interests are not always reading, writing, arithmetic. There may be something totally outside the box. I mean, who would have thought that all my generation's kids would end up having to work with computers? When I was in college, even teachers, well, nope, executives did not type. They did not ever do that. You never saw a typewriter in a teacher's or in an executive's office. And now everybody's got at least one computer on their desk, if not two or three. Life changes, and you have to adapt and adjust. And now we have AI, and I don't know what things are going to be like in the future with that stuff. But if your child shows some interest in learning how to use it, it's probably a good thing to encourage. Okay, that's about everything I can think of just off the top of my head. And ADHD, you're as a parent of an ADHD child, you are constantly preparing and learning and figuring out how to get things done. And more power to you. Okay, I'll catch you next time. And I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras. My website is terrygingrasphd.com. My podcast is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, which hopefully is what you're listening to now. It also comes in a couple of other places, but I do coaching for ADHD families, and I do a fair amount of work with executives with ADHD. And so if you want to do that, you can get on my Calendly account through my website and set up an appointment for a little get to know you kind of thing and see if we feel like we can work together. Okay, we will catch you next time. And remember, we're trying to make the world safe for ADHD.